If you've ever found yourself in a very public position and had a very public failure, this video's for you. If you have or ever are going through a bad breakup, this video's for you. If you're wondering how to end up with a bow ass versus an ass with a bow, I'm talking about donkeys, people, then this video's for you. You're gonna want some popcorn for this story. Hello everybody, this is GodsGirlG. Thank you for joining me for this video. And before we get started, for those of you who are new to my channel, thank you so much for joining. If you could do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it. That way you can be notified of any new video uploads that I do, which I do weekly. So let's get started. Today, I will be sharing with you a very personal story. It is a story of a broken engagement and subsequent wedding. This story really starts almost about 20 years ago. I was fresh out of college and I was new to the adult world. I had just started working and I landed my first job with city government or county government, and I was a child support enforcement agent. So what that meant is that if you were ordered to pay child support, I was one of the people that would make sure your payments came in, or I would either set up your payments. It is important that I say that I really did not have a whole lot of dating experience. So for some of you who may have dated all throughout high school and really into college, that's not my story. There's a reason for that maybe I'll share at another time, but I did not date a whole lot. We will call his name Jerome. The way that we met is that we met at my workplace. It's not because he was working there. He actually came there to take care of some things regarding child support. And I had become the investigator of the quarter because I had just been working tirelessly, and he saw my picture hanging up on the wall as being an investigator of the quarter. And so I guess he was there also visiting a friend. He saw my picture and was like, "Who's that? I want to meet her." Next thing I know, this person who I also knew, that was Jerome's friend, had hooked us up together, and we ended up having lunch. Now, you have to understand, I was very skeptical because the fact that he was in the child support agency to begin with was, for me, a kind of a red flag. So during this lunch, he had his briefcase with him, because back in those days we carried briefcases and not backpacks. Backpacks were not in until the millennial generation, okay? What was important is that he had his resume with him. I'm like, who walks around with the briefcase with the resume in it? But you know what? That was probably just me, It was the way that he was talking. He talked very much like he had a lot going on, but he was just saying a lot. I just didn't see a lot. But you know how sometimes people just wear you down? Because he kept being persistent. I remember that entire week being persistent, coming up every other day out of that week. "Hey, are you available for lunch?" "No, I'm not." And so I did kind of play hard to get a little bit, because I'm like, I'm not trying to make myself available to you. All like that in that whole time. I noticed that as the relationship started to mature, of course, I already had that conversation with him that, "Hey, I'm a Christian girl. This is what I do. This is what I don't do. I don't play like that. I love the Lord. I'm going to serve the Lord." All of that and stuff out the way. And he was like, so much in agreement to it. But it was something about him I couldn't put my finger on, but I thought I was just being a little judgmental. Okay. All right. So the relationship lasted, I'm thinking it lasted about a year and a half. I'm a little fuzzy with the timing, but here's what I know is it was New Year's Eve, and we were going to go to church. They would have victory night service here at my church that I was going to, which, by the way, I served in a position that was very public. Some of you may know, may not know, but I actually sing, and I have been singing all my life. So part of choirs, praise teams, special groups, background singing, all of that. So I was a singer, and at the time when he met me, I was also serving in a position of being a director over the choir. So the way that he proposed, we ended up going to an Asian restaurant, and he ended up talking with the waiter, and he asked the waiter, I guess he had a conversation with them, here's this engagement ring. I want you to bake it into one of the fortune cookies that you have, give it to her, and let's see what happens. And so I remember distinctly, he asked for the check because I think he had disappeared. He said he had to go to the men's room, and I think that's when he did all of that. But then when he asked for the check, they also brought out, as you know, they'll bring out fortune cookies. And so I remember looking at my fortune cookie. I was like, that's weird. Why did they put the fortune cookie on a plate? You know, because normally they come in that little plastic wrap. I'm like, where it's more sanitary, because I don't like people touching my food. That's just, you know, I'm just that type of person that I don't want you touching my food, okay? All right, we got that clear. So anyway, they brought out a plate, and I noticed that the fortune cookie didn't seem like it was all the way cooked. Something didn't look right about it. And I was like, something doesn't look right about it. And he just kept saying, well, just crack it open, make sure it's done. Just open it up. Just open it up. So I opened it up. And I was like, somebody put a ring in here. Somebody's missing a ring. I had no clue. I had no clue that he was trying to propose. No clue at all, because I felt it was too early, because I didn't know if I liked him like that. I mean, this is just real talk. I just didn't know. I know that the natural progression of a relationship should be that, but I'm just saying I wasn't sure. Okay? So anyway, when I opened it up, and I was like, somebody put a ring in here. And he ended up standing up, getting on one knee. And I'm looking at him like, what is he doing? And he proposed. And then I was a little bit in shock. And I said, okay, yeah, all right, yes. But there was something deep down inside that was just, I wasn't sure. But I still said yes. And he got up and he's like, everybody, you know, I just proposed to this wonderful lady here, and she said yes. And of course, the whole restaurant was just applauding. Woo-hoo, way to go. Okay, that's good. Well, anywho, so we started planning for an October wedding. Probably about 6 months before the wedding, we started looking for a home. So, you know, my credit was good. That's all I'm gonna say, is my credit was good. So we were able to get a loan, but it was only a certain amount of loan. And so we picked out a home, and I'll never forget it. It was the day that the realtor came to the house, and we were getting ready to draw up a contract to bid on a home. Jerome came to my apartment where the realtor was already sitting, and I noticed that he was looking very, very nervous, like something was wrong. And I was thinking, oh, he must have had a really bad day at work. He looks horrible. And so anyway, the realtor sitting there talking us through the contract. And all of a sudden, Jerome goes, I'm not ready to sign. I'm not ready to sign on this. And the realtor looks over at Jerome, and then the realtor looks at me like, what's your problem? So next thing I know, the realtor is like, okay, he was very gentlemanly. He got up and he said, okay, well, I'm gonna let you and she talk about this, and then you guys call me when you're ready to sign. But he knew something was wrong. And so he got up, got his stuff, and walked out. And I turned to Jerome and I said, what's going on? I said, you seem very, very stressed that something happened. Next thing I know, my realtor calls me and tells me, hey, I just want to let you know there's a girl by the name of, we'll call her Falana, because I can't remember her name. I just call her Falana. That's out here that's actually looking for you. And I said, she said my name? And I was like, because I don't know anybody by that name. He's like, yeah. No sooner than I hung up from the realtor, Jerome looks over at me wide-eyed. I look at him and I said, who is Falana? So next thing I know, I get a buzz that somebody's at my door. And so I hit one of those apartments where you actually had to buzz in. So girlfriend up there talking about, hi, is this such and such? My name is Falana. I need to talk to you about Jerome. Now, by this time, Jerome, his face turned ashen and white. In my mind, I was like, what you done did now? That was my inside voice. I'm like, what in the devil is going on here now? Well, I ended up letting her in, and I know some of y'all right there, stop the record. Why you gonna let her in the house? Because I wanted to hear the story, because I had been suspecting that something was awry, but I couldn't put my finger on it, see. Sometimes things have a way of showing up unexpectedly. So make a long story short, too late, I know. Make a long story short, she comes in and proceeds to show me pictures of she and him together, like hanging out, going to dinner, going all these different places. Now, I know some of you are like, wait a minute, GodsGirlG, that could have been old pictures from when they used to date and stuff like that. Hold up. See, back in them days, before there was like really like digital cameras like there are today, they had digital cameras back then, but them cameras back then, they had a date on it that would print out with the picture. Come on, print out with the picture. So it would tell you the date and time that the picture was taken. Lo and behold, Jerome and Falana had a thing going on during the same time that he was dating me. I know. I was so done. So she proceeds to tell me, I don't want you to think that I'm doing this because I'm trying to break y'all up, but you're not marrying a good man. And I just found out that y'all were getting married. And boom, 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 boom. I looked at her and I said, you don't have to say anymore. I actually believe you. And I said, I'm not mad at you. I said, but this one over here, I said, he got to go. So I looked at him and I said, the wedding, the engagement is off. I took the ring off in her presence, gave it to him, and I said, you don't need to contact me anymore. I'll take care of notifying everybody that's in the wedding party, at least on my side, your groomsmen. You need to let them know what happened. I said, so don't try to call me. You don't need to call me anymore. I appreciate your apology, because he did try to apologize. And then this is what he said. Falana is not marriage material. She's just dating material. But you are wife material. You are marriage material. And that's why I did it. I knew what your boundaries were. And that's why I did it. I'm just a man. I had needs. My inside voice was like, boy, you better call Tyrone. You better go somewhere. That's what my inner voice said. All right, well, Jerome and Falana left. And next thing I know, they are out front, in front of my apartment. And she is laying into him. She's hitting him. I'm looking out through my I had a glass door, little patio area. And I'm looking out, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're causing the scene. Police are going to be called. Now, with me having a city government job, I was always concerned about the police's involvement in anything that I do, because I don't want that look negatively on my job. So, anywho, so I go out there, I go out there and I say, look, y'all need to take that back to her place or y'all place, because y'all need to clear up out of here. I said, y'all need to go. Y'all just have to go. And so they ended up getting in their cars and leaving. And of course, he tried to call me. I didn't pick up. I do remember calling my mother and telling her that the wedding was off. And I think she actually thought I was joking. But I wasn't. I was not joking. I was like, the wedding was off. Now, I know some of you are like, well, if you had all of these little red flags, why did you take this so hard? I think it's because that sometimes for those of us who actually carried that celibacy, or the weight as they are now calling it, when a man does something like that, it makes you feel less of a woman, like you're not worthy or worth the weight. I felt almost like less of a woman, or less of who I know God had me to be. My mindset just wasn't right. I was just hurt because I felt that my heart had been violated. So I mourned, and I remember that following Sunday, because I think that occurred on like a Monday, because we had just looked at that house that the realtor was there, the contract that weekend. So he came back to my apartment on that Monday so that we could sign the actual paperwork. I actually had to sing and direct that following Sunday. So I gave myself a week. I was totally tore up because I was in such a public position, and it was so public. Everybody in the church, and it was a nice sized church. We're not talking about no size, 50 some people. We're talking about at least 800 people plus. They all knew I was getting married. That was the person that I was going to marry. And so I felt like a failure walking up to that stage. And so what happened was he did not give up. He had the audacity. Now, he was going to a different church. He had the audacity on that Sunday morning to show up to the church that I attended and proceeded to act a fool. I'll tell you. So I'm sitting up in the choir stand. The preacher's preaching. And the preacher's just tearing up. He like, and Jesus Santa. And all the saints were just up like, yes, yes. And here goes J. Rome. J. Rome gets up and act like he done caught the spirit. I'm supposed to have this face of, yes, the Lord's good. But inside, I know he ain't gonna come up in my church, the church I've been a part of all these years, call himself catching the spirit only to try to catch my attention. The devil is a lie. So I was standing up, I was like, all right, Pastor, you better preach. I saw that. My face immediately was like, and then I sat down. My girlfriend, who was sitting on the front row, who knew everything that was going on, she had been standing up too, but she was watching me, and she noticed immediately my face done changed. I sat down and she turned around to where my eyes were. She was just like, what is going on? Then she was like, and then she started hollering, laughing. Now, the music was high and everything, so nobody heard her, but I saw her go, so part of me wanted to laugh because I knew what she was laughing at, but I'm sorry, but when you up on stage, you can't hide that kind of drama. So he was up there tearing up in the row, called himself catching the spirit. I sat back down like this, turned myself so where I couldn't see him, looking at other saints up there going, I had to keep it together. Nobody at the church that was not close to me knew that this was actually going on, that he and I had broken up. So everybody was just like, okay, something going on. Whatever's going on is going on. They just knew something was going on. Okay. So I remember for the weeks that presented after that, he actually had stalker type tendencies where I was waking up in the morning, going to my car to get in my car, and who was there in the parking lot watching? It was him. And I was getting up at like 6 something in the morning because I needed to catch the bus downtown because I couldn't afford downtown parking during that time. Come home from work. He's sitting in the parking lot of my apartment. And when I got home, I remember him trying to approach me, wanting to talk. And I said, I do not want to talk to you. You said everything that you needed to say. I'm good. Live your life. Get your life. I'm good. This continued for weeks upon a time, to the point where I was actually starting to get in fear of my life. And what a lot of people don't know is that very fact is that I was very, very scared. But sometimes by that time I had gone on to a different position with the city, and I was now in a more of a law enforcement type of position. And the last thing again that I wanted was to make publicity in my own department, in my own area. So it was a very trying time for me. But you know what? That whole story, that whole scenario taught me a lot. What I learned is that you've got to pay attention to the red flags. Now, your red flags may be different than my red flags for a person, but trust what your gut is telling you. Remember throughout the story, I kept saying I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but something wasn't quite right. Yeah. Listen to that gut feeling, and until you figure it out, go slow, take it back. It's okay to say no to an engagement, or when someone proposes to you and you're not ready, it's okay to say no. The other thing that I learned is that being naive and not having a lot of dating experience, as I've shared with you, it's no protection against being taken advantage of or being wronged. And the third lesson that I learned is that when people do things to you, or when people walk away from you, as Bishop T.D. Jakes has said, let them walk. And many times people walking away or doing things like that to you, becomes a blessing, because what would have happened had I married him? If he was doing stuff like that before we got married, what was he gonna do after the marriage? So looking back on that now, almost 20, probably a little bit more than 20 years later, it has been such a blessing, because that would have ended up in divorce, because Falana would have shown up somewhere. I'm just saying. So hopefully this video, you found some inspiration out of it, some comfort if you are actually dealing with a breakup of a relationship, engagement, or even having to call off your wedding. Hopefully this provided some encouragement for you. So thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. And if you have any questions or you would like to contact me, please email me at GodsGirlG@gmail.com. Thanks for watching.